Hey everyone, I'm Catherine Endy, the Family Life Coach, and today we are talking about noticing and describing your own experience. Specifically, noticing and describing your own experience when your child is upset or dysregulated. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what happens when you notice and describe your own experience and how to do it, and what's happening in your brain when you do this. So in order to remain calm and steady and regulated in the face of our child's emotional upset, it's really important that we notice and become aware of our own experience, our own emotional state, and our own thoughts. So, for example, if your child starts screaming, they're starting to have a tantrum, you might say to yourself, wow, and you might even say this out loud. You might say, wow, it's getting really loud in here. I notice that my heart is starting to beat a little bit faster. I feel like I'm going to yell, but I'm going to take a deep breath instead. Now, when you say this out loud, it's great to say it in your head. If that's where you want to start, go ahead and say this in your head. That's a great starting place to train yourself to start noticing these things. But when you start to say these things out loud, what happens is you're modeling emotion regulation for your child. So it's totally fine to just say these things out loud. I notice that it's getting really loud in here. I notice that my palms are starting to sweat. I notice that my face is starting to get hot. Wow, I'm having these experiences. And just say it out loud. Okay, so that's the step one, is becoming aware of your experience, your physiological experience, and what's going on around you, right? It's getting loud in here. I notice that everyone is starting to cry. Very matter of fact. Then you might say to yourself or out loud, I feel myself getting really frustrated. I notice that I'm getting a little angry. I feel like things are not going my way. Again, labeling those emotions is modeling for your child how to label their own emotions. And it's also allowing you to notice and describe your own experience, which brings greater awareness and the ability to regulate that emotion. And we'll get to the brain science about it in just a minute. So just the fact that you are noticing, it's just an observation. You don't have to make a judgment about it. You don't have to say it's bad that I'm getting angry, or I wish that I wasn't getting angry. None of that. Just, I notice that I'm getting angry. I notice that I'm getting a little frustrated. No judgment. It's just noticing and describing. Okay, so that's noticing and describing your emotional state. Now, inside your head, you might be having some thoughts. You might be thinking, oh my God, I wish she would stop screaming. Why does she always do this? How is she ever going to learn that she doesn't always get her way? You might notice that you're having those thoughts about your child when they are having a meltdown or having emotional upset. So as you become aware of your thoughts, you can just repeat them back to yourself. I noticed that I had the thought, why does she always do this? Or I noticed that I had the thought that if I don't teach my child how to stop screaming, she'll never learn that she doesn't always get her way. You might just notice and repeat to yourself, I notice that I'm having these thoughts. And just observe it. Just bring some curiosity to it. And what happens when you bring that sense of awareness to yourself and observe and describe your own experiences, emotions, and thoughts is this brings you into a higher level of thinking. It brings you into your prefrontal cortex. So when you're having emotions and when your child is in emotional upset, you're in your limbic system, right? That's where the emotions happen. And that is a lower part of your brain where not a whole lot of thinking happens. That's just where emotion happens. There's no language there, and there's no ability to self-regulate in the limbic system. But in the prefrontal cortex, which is this part right here behind your forehead. It's the part that makes us human. Higher level thinking, planning, language, all of these things are as a result of the prefrontal cortex. And when you bring observation and description to your experience, whether it's your surroundings or your emotional experience or the thoughts that you're having, you're engaging the prefrontal cortex. So as your kid is spiraling into their emotional upset, you don't want to go down with them, right? You want to stay the grown-up in charge. So to do that, describing what you're experiencing and what you're feeling brings you into your prefrontal cortex and activates the part of your brain that can regulate yourself. So this is a brilliant strategy. It's a brilliant hack, really, because it brings you, it's sort of like you're floating up above yourself and you see yourself down in the scene and you're like, that person is having some emotional upset. That person, her cheeks are getting flushed and I can see that she's starting to get angry, right? And so as you take that observer role, you're activating the prefrontal cortex and engaging your ability to regulate yourself. So I want to encourage you to do this with no judgment, with no harsh self-criticism, but just, I notice this is what's going on. I notice I am having this experience. I notice I am having these specific emotions and these specific thoughts. And this is what happens when you engage, again, you're engaging the prefrontal cortex, which allows you instantly start to self-regulate just by describing your experience. This is part of mindfulness, guys, by the way. It's part of mindful parenting, that skill of just noticing and describing your experience. And guess what else happens when you do this? Your child calms down, because you're not only modeling how to do emotion regulation, but as your brain and your nervous system starts to settle, you emit calmer brain waves out into your environment, which helps them to calm and settle. So you don't even have to say anything to them. You're just observing and noticing and describing your own experience. You calm down almost instantly. Of course, adding a deep breath or a nice glass of water helps as well. And then that helps your little person calm down. So I want to challenge you to give this a try this week. Try noticing and describing your own behavior, experiences, emotions, and thoughts. And let me know in the comments how it goes. What do you notice? What do you experience? Tell me what your experience of noticing your experience is like for you. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Catherine Endy, the Family Life Coach, and I'll see you next time.